Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I'm your host, Randi-lee Bowslaugh. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to J.V. Hilliard. If you have not already hit that subscribe button, do it right now. And also be sure to share these episodes out with everybody you know. I am joined here by, I'll give you his author name, J.V. Hilliard. But Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time coming on here. Where are you from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I've been around the country. This is home, and this is where we moved back to. So happy to be here.
Oh, very nice. I've gone shopping in Pennsylvania. That's about it.
That's not much of an experience.
It gets me away from my home. So
okay, where's that?
By Niagara Falls, the Canada.
Oh, not
side.
far. Not far.
No, not at all. That's why we can go shopping there.
That's exactly right.
The stuff's cheaper there.
Yeah.
Although with the exchange rate right now, maybe not. So anyways, tell me a little bit about who Joe is.
Yeah, so I am an author in the epic fantasy and dark fantasy genre. So if you like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or Wheel of Time, I think you'll like the kind of books that I write. I picked that up since I was 10 years old. I had The Hobbit read to me as one of my, fourth grade classes.
Okay.
And my teacher had read it to me, and I fell in love with the genre, and Tolkien at that point in my life, and then started playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and really anything sci-fi fantasy is something that's kind of attracted to me over the years, although I do like the Gothic. I like the dark fantasy stuff too. So I incorporate that into my novels, and my novels are safe for folks that are YA up to 80 years old. Whoever wants to read them are fine. So they're more PG-13 than they are NC-17.
I kind of like those better, personally.
Yeah.
Like something that's like, it's an easy read. It's good enough, but it's not going like over the top.
Yeah, I think to capture a broader audience, I think that's important. I also think that, that's when I got hooked into. I was middle grade, maybe a little bit more advanced for middle grade at the time, but it was something for me that I found that attracted me to the genre, and it's something that stays with you, right? Like it doesn't necessarily leave. If you like it, you're going to stay with it. And so I've stayed with the Star Warses of the world and the Indiana Joneses of the world and Lord of the Rings of the world, and had my fill, but I think they're all safe for that YA kind of grade too, if necessary.
Yeah, definitely. And so the most important fact about you that you have not shared, but I know now, is that you have dogs.
I do. I have 2 dogs, and it's a very important fact, and you may hear them join our conversation at any point during this interview. I've got a red fox lab retriever whose name is McLeod, and McLeod is like 100-pound lap dog. He doesn't know any better. He started in the lap when he was little, and he never got any littler, just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I also have a Siberian Husky named Thor. So if you can't tell, I mean, the Highlander name came for McLeod, and then the Thor just came right out of, Norse mythos. And of course, my wife would tell you it came from the Marvel movies and a certain actor that plays that character. But
good actor.
Yeah. She tells me.
Might be a female thing.
Yeah, I would think so. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've got 3 dogs. So I've got a beagle, which we did a doggy DNA test on her because she's very small for a beagle, and she's mixed with a hound dog. So I'm like, oh yeah, that suits her, because it explains the ears too. They're similar, but they're not quite the same. So it explains the ears. Then we have a black lab.
Yep.
And yeah, he is all about being a lap dog.
Of course he is. All labs are, right?
Yep. And then we just got a puppy just before Christmas.
So congratulations.
He's now 7 months. He is taller than the lab now. 74 pounds. And he has no concept of where he just puts his butt.
Yeah.
And so he is kind of like a lap dog as well. I think it's unintentional because he He's like a weird teenager with his big lanky arms and doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, he's kind of growing into his body and doesn't know what that is. What kind of dog is he?
So he is a shepherd mix. We think mixed with husky. But we did buy a doggy DNA test for him. We just haven't done it yet.
So lots of shedding too, right?
Lots of shedding.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the lab sheds like crazy already. So.
Welcome to the club.
I know. Vacuum every day.
Yes, exactly right. You have to stay vigilant.
Yeah. So I could talk about my animals all day, but I guess we should maybe talk about mental health.
No problem at all.
So what mental health are we going to talk about today?
So when I was younger, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's something that has been run through my family. My grandmother had it, and when she came to the U.S., and I'm certain that her ancestors had it before her, and my brother has it, my mother has it, I have it, and it's one of these things that you can control in a variety of different ways, right? In part, it's something that can be medicated. It's something that can be treated through therapy. I've taken a little different look at it, and I've tried to turn what some would perceive as a weakness into a strength. You know, so I don't take medicine for it, nor have I sought treatment for it. I've just learned to use it as a tool. And when I say that, it's those that may not be familiar with the condition, they often mischaracterize it. I hear it once a day. Someone will say, "Oh, I'm OCD for this," or "I'm OCD for that." And they really don't know what it means.
Yeah, my kid tells me that about my cleaning. He's like, "Oh, you're so OCD." I'm like, "I'm not. I probably have a little touch in there when it comes to the organization specifically of like areas I can control, like my basement. Last summer, I think it was, my husband was going to be helpful. He's going to be so helpful and tidy the basement. I lost it on him. I was like, "Do not touch my meticulously organized basement. If you touch anything in my meticulously," and I must have said meticulously organized basement like 20 times. And he's like, "There's no way that you know where everything is." I'm like, "Really? Ask me where something is." And he would ask me like an obscure question. He's like, "Oh, where is my game book of whatever?" And I'm like, "That shelf, bottom there, right in that box." And he's like, "Oh, okay, you do now." Yeah, don't touch my meticulously organized basement.
I won't, I promise.
Excellent. So that's not true OCD by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, you're right. A lot of people, they just use it, right? They're like, "Oh, you're so OCD about it." And how does that make you feel when you hear people say it?
It really, I think it may bother. For me, I don't mind. I understand where they're going with it, because chances are if they're doing it, I'm also doing it. So I get it. And like you said, you might have a little bit of a touch of it or something. In most cases, like there are people out there that just like to be organized and neat. Or there are people that like to do certain things all the time, right? And they're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And I think that, folks like me have a tendency to be habitual creatures to a point of a fault. Many of us fall into the category of gamblers or drinkers or drug addicts and things like that because of the problem. But I think that, I don't get emotional about it. I just know that I am who I am, and I kind of fight through it, and I try to use it. Like I said, I mean, in the beginning, it was a lot of stuff where you try to learn the habits and what not to do, and what's socially acceptable and what you need to hide. In some cases, like I don't tell my wife when I'm counting steps through an airport. She doesn't need to know it. She just knows that I do it in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Or like you said, organizationally, I write out to-do lists, and when too many things get scratched off, I have to rewrite the to-do list. And those are little ticks, right?
Yeah, I do the same thing on that one.
Yeah, the bigger problems really are, lifestyles, and folks like us have a tendency to fall into a couple of categories, and there are those that are super compulsive. Like my brother has an issue with doing the same thing all the time, no matter what, and if he doesn't, it throws him off, and he can't think the way he needs to think. And even though I will recognize the fact that I'm brushing my teeth excessively and flossing, and people look at me and I'm like one guy in the room that likes to go to the dentist because I want to make sure they're clean, but those kind of things, you just kind of learn to live with. And, I never try to get offended by it, because I know that, in many instances, people are just trying to describe something that's important to them.
Yeah.
And in my case, I've turned that condition into assets, for me.
And
I've
we're going
become
to talk about those.
okay. I'll stop there then.
Yeah. Hold on. We don't want to give everything away at the beginning.
No problem. No problem at all.
When were you diagnosed? Because you were saying that you were younger.
Yeah, this was before it was called what it's called today, but it was when I was around 8 years old.
What was it called then?
There wasn't, I don't remember, there wasn't a term for it, but when it started to, I think that we knew that there was a condition within the family with my grandmother and my mother for sure. I started doing stupid little things, like I would bump something and have to go back and bump myself in the same exact way, or else I couldn't walk past it, or I would say the same thing over and over and over again in my head, and I would sing it, and if it didn't come out the same exact way with the same exact notes, I couldn't get away from it. And there are tricks and stuff like that you learn to kind of teach yourself not to do over the years, but at the end of the day, I think I was the first person officially diagnosed in my family. My brother after me.
Is he younger or older?
He's younger. He's 3 years younger. But it was something that the nurses and teachers noticed. And there's at the time it was just, oh, that's a tick, or the kid's just, he's growing up, he needs to mature, he's kind of weird, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And you don't know any better. And then when it was something that was tackled in, I would think, the early 2000s, people started to learn a little bit more about the condition. It was something that people started to learn not only to live with, but other people understood that people had this. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it was uncontrollable, and that doesn't make it easier to live with them, if you would ask my wife, or make it easier for folks to work with, because you can be a perfectionist, or there are things that you do that have a rhythm to them that other people don't appreciate or even understand. And so sometimes that gets them frustrated or even upset, and you just have to kind of fight through it and, put your head down and keep working and do what you do.
Yeah. So teachers and nurses were noticing this. Was it having an impact on you at that age?
Sure. There were things that, I would do that, other kids wouldn't do, you know what I mean? And, I had to be first in line to get on the school bus. I had to sit in the same seat all the time. I was left-handed, so I would always look for a seat, you know how this is. This is just a natural condition of things, but like in schools, they only had a limited number of left-handed seats in which you could write.
Yeah.
So that was always a pain in the butt. So I would try to look to be in the same place, and when I wasn't, it would throw you off. Your attention span drops, especially at that age. You don't know how to really fight through it or compartmentalize it.
And your attention span's already pretty slow at that age.
Especially as a boy. You know what I mean? You're already scratching the walls and stuff like that. And if you're around too long and places. And so there were tips that I was given, and a lot of them were simplistic. It was things like exercise. And I learned that the more that I tired myself out, the less my OCD affected me. So
that's interesting.
I would run, I would play something, a physical activity, and it just sort of takes the edge off. Instead of there always being this anxiety hanging in the back, you're too tired to have anxiety. So, it was before like the medicine thing was really sort of a popular mix. And then my family didn't want to put my brother or me on medicine. Mm-hmm. My brother ended up getting on medicine because his condition is a little bit more, acute than mine is. But it was something that, I learned practiced regimens to help you kind of deal with stuff and to kind of let things go. I mean, simple things like hoarding and making sure you don't fall into traps like that, or, memorializing things that don't mean anything to somebody else. But for whatever reason, you have this sentimentality that's attached to it and you can't get rid of something. Or if something like you described, someone moves something and it doesn't fit the way you think it needs to fit in your space. Ugh. And those
are the
worst. You got to fight through, and so I learned what I describe as practiced regimes to take the edge off, and that's what I did, at a young age. And my parents made sure that I got a lot of physical activity, and so it was a way for me to kind of focus again, and that way it didn't affect my grades. In fact, in many ways, it helped them.
That's so good to hear. So something that I want to touch on that I thought was interesting, because there's always like a variety of guests on the show, obviously. And as you were saying, you didn't have to go on medicine, but what I liked about how you were saying that was that you weren't condemning medication, right? Because some people, and I'll admit to doing some edits because I will not condemn medication on the show, but it's not always helpful for everybody, but for those that need it, it's there. And so it's interesting, you and your brother, same condition, same growing up, really, because same parents, same house, and one of you needed it and one of you didn't. And that's totally fine. And I just think it's such an interesting thing that, people are always talking nature versus nurture and all that stuff. So I always find it very interesting when siblings are so different and yet so the same.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, not everything is going to work for everybody. I learned that in sort of my day job. I was working with a tech company that had a new form of therapeutics for cancer. And they said to me one day, because I was trying to learn a little bit about their tech, and they said to me one day, not everybody reacts to medicine the same way. So a cancer treatment that would work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And so their solution was to take a biopsy of the cancer, test a variety of different solutions on it, including AI, using artificial intelligence to model it out. And then they would customize the treatment to your form of cancer. Well, I look at medicine in the same way. I mean, sometimes it's better for you to handle it by having a better diet or something like you said. There's a nurture aspect or habits that get you through it. Other times there are medicines out there that'll help you do that and do that better, or sometimes they're necessary. In my brother's case, it was. I mean, he would have anxieties at night. He would, to the point where he was sleepwalking. I mean, there was dangerous things as part of that. And so for him, medicine was a way through it, and it helped him. For me, it was unnecessary. It was something that I didn't even have to necessarily try. I mean, I learned to do the things that I was taught to do to kind of manage it. And, I'm not always the best at managing it. Sometimes it slips out. That is what it is. But I think that, ultimately long term, if I don't have to be on medicine, I think that's just better for me all around. And, for some that need to be, that's great. Do it. I have no problems with that at all.
Yeah. People, if you don't need medication, then I think it's more harmful. But when you do need it and you don't take it, again, it's more harmful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got to do it.
Wise, very wise.
Thank you. I have my moments. So let's kind of fast forward a couple of years, and you've got your diagnosis, you're coping with it now. Did you ever feel different because you had it, because you had to do these extra things that the other kids didn't have to do?
Yes. There's a simple answer there. And when you're younger, you don't understand that, and it's hard to to kind of find acceptance for your differences. You're always trying to fit in. As you get older, that kind of lessens, and people realize that everybody has their differences. But when you're young and you're growing up and you're worrying about things that other people aren't worried about, and it's distracting you from doing the things that are in front of you that you need to do. You have to master that, and there's only one way of doing it, really, and you have to kind of fight through it. And everybody needs guidance, and I had a number of people that were there, not just family but also friends and health professionals that help you kind of get through it and learn how to kind of cope with it, and knowing it's not going to go away. People think that you can train it, and it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It's a strange life to lead when you wake up before your alarm. You know what I mean? And you just know to shut it off, because you're in your head, you're unconscious, and you're still counting seconds, and things like that, where you always beat the alarm. And when you don't, there's a problem. You're sick, or you're really tired, or whatever. And you're always the last to go to bed and the first to get up. And, sleep is a precious commodity sometimes, and because your mind is always racing about dumb things, and you just have to kind of fight through it. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. It wasn't like, there are people out there that suffer from other conditions that are much worse than mine, so
Yeah.
for
But
me,
we're not comparing.
that's no, but so for me, it's something it's invisible, until it's not, until there's something that really kind of goes wrong. And as a kid, you kind of lose your temper, or you end up in the principal's office, or you do something stupid that you didn't even realize was stupid, because to you it made total sense.
Yeah.
And I think what you fight through is teachers and coaches and adults that don't understand the condition often think that you're acting out or acting up or all of the above.
Yes.
And that it puts you in a framework with them where it's, you have to kind of fight through that, and until they realize. And you don't walk around telling people you're diagnosed. You don't hand them a card.
You don't wear a shirt that says I have OCD?
No, my OCD wouldn't allow me to wear that shirt.
I thought you did.
Yeah, no. So like that, and that's the kind of stuff that I think, as the stigma of the condition and people are more aware of it, it's easy for them to understand and work around. And I think you see a lot of that in schools and professional settings now than you ever have. And it's not like, again, I'm not comparing conditions. I think I have if I were to have one, this is the one I would choose. This is one you can deal with. So it's okay. It's a little bit of a curse, but it's a mini curse. I'll take it. So
yeah, that's hilarious. So I was talking to my aunt this morning, because I always call her when I'm walking the dogs in the morning to keep me company. She's gonna get a job soon. Not gonna be able to do that. It's very sad. She watches these episodes, so she'll know.
Oh, good.
To her. So anyways, I was talking to her, and we got on the topic of schools. Now, this isn't necessarily OCD related, but you brought up schools and how you'll act out or it makes sense to you, even though the adults in your life don't understand it. Then you're brought in to talk to the principal, whatever. So we were talking about a child. I'm not going to give details just in case other people are watching. They're like, don't talk about my kid. So anyway, so we were talking about this child, and she had an outburst and hit another student because that student was taunting her. And not going to say hitting is okay. However, I definitely have given my child permission in the past to protect himself. And so anyways, the point of the story is that the teacher came over because the teacher saw her hitting this other child. She didn't ask, why did you hit them? She didn't say, hey, here's some better tools to use. She didn't say, why did your anger boil over? What can we do as a coping strategy so this doesn't happen again? And from my history with my child being in the younger grades, so he's 15 now, but when he was in the younger grades and being bullied and having meltdowns and all that fun stuff, and even going back 25 years when I was a child, I'm not that old, honest. And I can remember getting so angry at another student that I chucked a rock at her because I didn't know what else to do, because I had never been put in that position before. And so what I'm trying to say with all of those scenarios, they all had this common element of the adults around didn't ask questions. They didn't try to understand what the child was going through to then help them make better choices later. And so what you're describing is that you were able to learn these better choices over time, obviously. But you learned these better choices. You learned these better coping strategies that you've been able to use and to turn into what you always say, that you've turned it into a helpful thing.
Yeah. In your case, I played ice hockey through college. And the one thing that I would say that mirrors what you said in the beginning of your remarks is that the second guy is always the guy that gets the penalty, right? Yep. The referee doesn't see the first infraction, but they see the retaliation.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was always the retaliator, right? And it's somebody that was coming back for whatever reason, because you don't know how to do that. And I think that schools and even professional settings have gotten better at making people aware of that, and so that teachers know how to look out for those kind of things, or that they have students that have those kind of needs within the classrooms. And that didn't exist when I was growing up. Like you said, it was almost like, what are you doing? And even my stuff was less violent, just more jarring. And I'll give you an example of that. Like back when I was in high school, it was just when the era of children having computers in classrooms were available. So it's just during that transition. So a lot of our tests were given, and you were using pen and paper. Like I'm talking old school, so you can see what my age is too. So like the pen and paper stuff, if I were to make a mark incorrectly, I could not scratch it out. I would have to ask for another test. And my teachers would not understand that it was not the fact that I was trying to cheat, or it wasn't the fact that, I couldn't just squiggle it out. It was the fact that it was ruined. That paper was tainted in my head, and that I literally had to start over, and it had to be written perfectly, or else it would throw me off. And then it would affect the outcome of my grade, right? Because all I was worried about was a stupid squiggle line on line 2 I'm trying to get to line 18. And so, those kind of things are, to teachers back then, I think that they weren't aware that that was an actual condition, and how to walk you through that.
They just thought you're being a pain in the butt.
Right. Yeah. And I see that even stuff like my brother-in-law is dyslexic, and these days they give you additional time for tests beyond, normal time, because you have a condition, you're kind of reading backwards or out of order. And so they allow for that, but they need to know up front. And I think the society's done a good job on a way to doing an even greater job of not just understanding it, but embracing it, and trying to help people with their some of their, maybe I don't want to call it shortfalls, but with some of their habits. Let's leave it that way.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about now how you've turned it into more helpful habits.
Well, sure. There's a couple of ways. First of all, I think the condition, whether you like it or not, makes you a perfectionist. And I know that bothers some folks, but for me, it actually settles me when things are in place. I'm not scrambled. It's not chaotic for me. And so for me, making sure, whether it's a work product or an entertainment thing that's going on, I get bothered by the dumbest things. And so when I enter the bubble of what I'm trying to accomplish, it's going to come out at what I wanted it to come out as. And I think that as goofy as that might sound, it's something that translates into your life. Your finances are always in place. Your house is always in place. You're always planning for things. It's like a be prepared, Boy Scout kind of thing that just stays with you in every facet of what you do. But when you're a writer, there's always going to be revisions. There's always going to be edits and things like that. And so for me, I try to ameliorate those concerns by getting it right the first time. But I've learned in my craft that it's never right the first time. Right? So
No.
You got to go back to the drawing board, or you got to tighten it up no matter what I do.
Yeah.
But I think that the other side of it is my writing style. In authorship, what I hear is that there are two types of authors. There are pantsers, people that fly by the seat of their pants.
Oh, that's me.
Right. And you start to write and you just go off in a direction and write. Right.
That's me.
Yeah. And then there are plotters or planners, and that is me. And that's where it becomes an asset, where I now know my entire plot before I start writing a single word. And I write backwards. So like I write the end of my novels and then reverse engineer it. And I have a whiteboard in front of me, whether it's a virtual one that's on my computer or a physical one that's in my office, where I start to eliminate things once they're incorporated in, so I don't leave anything out.
Oh, wow.
And it is that way, every detail is accounted for. I like to say I have no unused real estate in my novels, because if it's in there for a reason.
Yeah.
You might not know what it is until book 3 or book 4, but it's there. In there, and you'll figure that out. And nothing is left to happenstance. And then I've reversed engineered it completely from back to beginning. and then I think it just flows better. So I don't know if anybody else does it that way, but in my head, that's the way to do it.
That's funny. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're frozen. There you are. Me, it was all you. No.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
there you are.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So I heard up to, I don't know if anybody else does it that way, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Like that kind of writing style, I think, might be unique to someone like me, but it works, and I miss very little details in doing it. So
yeah,
I like it, and that's how I've turned something that's a weakness into a strength.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely more pantser. I definitely fly by the seat of my pants. I do a little bit of plotting, little bit, but for the most part, it's like a couple bullet points to keep me sort of on track, or else I'll like put books together when they're supposed to be separate. So I do that, but I mean, other than that, I'm like, here's my 5 points I'm gonna put in, and let's go.
Yeah. So let me. I like that for a couple of reasons, because for me, I get a question at conventions or when I'm doing a book signing somewhere is, what do you do to get over writer's block? And I find that question awkward sometimes to answer, because I don't have writer's block, because I already did the story. It's backwards. It needs to be written, but I already know what's going to happen. So there is no writer's block. But when I do get writer's block, I often will go and I'll talk to other creatives, and people that I played Dungeons and Dragons with, or people that are also writers or authors or artists, and bounce ideas off of them or whatever. But I never hit that. For me, if you told me, Joe, here's an idea, and you gave me 15 seconds of an idea, that's when I get writer's block, because I haven't figured out the whole story yet. I can't write. I hit that wall because I don't know where I'm going, and I just can't start writing. I have to know where I'm going before I get in the car.
yeah. And it's hilarious for me, just because that is the only time that I can fly by the seat of my pants. Like when I'm planning my week or my day or whatever, I need to know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, how long it's going to take me there, who's driving, like all the details have to be there. But when it comes to writing, fly by the seat of my pants.
Well, that's a talent I don't share with you. And I'm there's part of me that's wishes I could, and the other part of the OCD part of me is like, no way.
A part of me wishes I could do it your way and like plan so that I could be a little more prepared for things and maybe stay a little more on task. But yeah, it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Everybody writes differently, right?
Exactly. That's why we have such amazing stuff written. So speaking of amazing stuff written, what amazing things have you written?
So my debut novel is The Last Keeper. It's the book 1 in the series known as the Warminster Saga. The second book comes out in August of this year. The third will be out around the holidays, and the fourth will be out this time next year, and I'll finish the series then. And it's a story that I know earlier I mentioned sort of the genre, the epic fantasy genre.
Yes.
So if you like sword and sorcery stuff, you'll probably like this. It features magic and swords and fighting and politics and intrigue.
My cousin's kid would probably like that.
Yeah.
He is such an avid reader. He's 13 now, and he's read, I can't even tell you how many books. We've basically given him all of my husband's old books because they read the same kind of thing. Yep. And he's read them all. So, and for Christmas, we're like, okay, here's a gift card. Go buy more books.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of, and it's a really safe activity for kids too. And you want your kid to be a reader. So glad to have that in the family. I'll bet you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the books are really, I mean, if you read the blurb on the back, it would tell you that it's about the hero, a young man just out of teenagerhood, named Damus Alaric, and he is a keeper of the forbidden. And what they are is they are prophets and seers in the realm of Warminster, and they are imparted visions of things that have yet to come to pass. And he starts having dreams of a fallen keeper, one who used his power against all the edicts and sort of the commandments of the keepers, and was punished, was cursed by his god. And they arrive together in Damus's dreamscape, and he needs to figure out why this fallen keeper is coming to seek revenge and how they're connected. And that's really how the story begins. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
So
you
it's
give
that
me
parcel.
one to review?
I would be more than happy to send you one if I have it. I absolutely would.
Yeah, I don't think that's on my list. Send it to me. I want
Well,
to
I'd love for it to be on your list. I'll send it to you after the show for sure. Do you like audio, ebook, or
if you have audio, that's my favorite.
I sure do. I will email you one. Courtesy copy of JV. Yeah.
I'm currently looking for a new ebook to start because I just finished one. I started another one, but I couldn't get into it. So now I'm still looking for another one. So
sure. No. I'll get you them all.
When I don't call my aunt to walk the dogs, I listen to ebooks.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. And so where do people get their hands on it?
So it's available through many distribution channels. So if you want a paperback or an ebook, you could start at Amazon and work your way through about 20 different distributors, whether it's Apple Book or you can buy it from Barnes and Noble. You can go and pretty much get it anywhere just by Googling The Last Keeper, or you can go to my publisher's site, which is Dragon Moon Press, and you can buy the book there. If you're into the audiobooks, same thing. I mean, you can go to Audible or Kobo, Rakuten, or Apple Books again, or Scribed, and download the book to whatever is your favorite service for that. So you can find them in all of those places.
Excellent. Mine's Audible, just so we're aware.
There you go. I'll get you an Audible one today then.
Wouldn't it be cool if Audible was like, hey, well, we're being mentioned, we should give this YouTuber some money?
I think they call that an affiliate link.
That's the word. Yeah. So just saying. Anyway, so where else do people follow you?
So my social channels are really easy. If you're on Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram, my handle is at JV Hilliard Books. If you're on Facebook, it's just JV Hilliard. And if you want to go to my website, it is www.jvhilliard.com. And that's spelled Hilliard.
Excellent. And we are for sure going to put all of the links down in the description below so that everybody can get a hold of you, get a hold of your books, and make sure that they're up to date as all of these other parts of the book are coming out. Because I mean, once you read the first one, you obviously have to read the rest. That's
right. My OCD won't let me stop until it's finished.
So there you go. Another way that it's helpful.
It depends on how you read that. It's either good or bad. Blessing or a curse, right?
Yeah, but I mean, getting things done is helpful.
Yeah.
So that's good.
True.
So again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, share your story with the audience, and I do look forward to hearing your book.
It was my pleasure. And if anybody contacts you and asks for a chance to, if they want to talk about their similar condition and they feel like talking to someone like me and we can share best practices and war stories, I'd be more than happy to chat with them. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope this helps some folks out there.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, be sure to check out JV Hilliard's links down in the description below, pick up his books. And it sounds like he's got a nice plot of when all of the rest of the series is going to come out. So you know when you have to have it read by for the next one and the next one. If you want to support the channel, then of course we have our Patreon. For less than a coffee a month, you can get behind the scenes footage and first drafts of my writing. And we do have our merch store. I've got a sweater on. Oh, actually, I have a tank top on. Ready to Die Show with our slogan, speak openly and honestly. So you can always go and check out our merch store as well. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.